The bustle of the event filled the air with electrifying energy. In a large stadium specially set up for the occasion, hundreds of people waited anxiously. It wasn't just any day. It was the day MrBeast, the world's largest content creator, was about to change the lives of 2,000 people by giving them back the ability to walk. Cameras from all angles captured the excitement. Specialized medical teams were ready. The atmosphere was charged with hope and anticipation. In the center of the stage, MrBeast smiled, holding a microphone with the same passion that had led him to change the lives of millions of people in his videos. "Today is a special day," he said, addressing the crowd. "Today, 2,000 people will regain something that many of us take for granted: the ability to walk." The audience erupted in applause and cheers. Some of the beneficiaries were already there, sitting in wheelchairs, their eyes full of hope. Among them, a 12-year-old boy named Samuel. Samuel was not like other children his age. While others ran through the parks, he watched from a distance, dreaming of the day when his legs could respond with the same freedom. He was born with a congenital condition that prevented him from walking normally, but that had never stopped. His desire to be an athlete. Burning in his heart was a dream that many would consider impossible, competing in the Paralympic Games. But until now, every attempt to get closer to that dream had been an uphill battle. Not only because of his physical limitation, but because of economic barriers, lack of access to trainers, and the distrust of those who did not believe in his potential. Samuel learned that MrBeast was helping people with disabilities walk. He felt like fate was giving him a unique opportunity. Their mother had filled out the application without much hope. But now, here they were, in an event that would change their lives forever. Samuel looked around. Beside him, an older man with tears in his eyes held the hand of his wife, who had not walked for years. A smaller boy, clinging to the wheelchair, smiled nervously. Everyone was here with the same dream: to take that first step towards a new life. Then, something unexpected happened. As MrBeast walked among the beneficiaries, he stopped when he saw Samuel's determined look. Something about him caught her attention. He crouched down to his height and asked, "How do you feel today, friend?" Samuel swallowed and responded with a firm voice, "Excited." But more than anything, ready. MrBeast smiled. He had heard many answers that day, but the conviction in Samuel's voice intrigued him. Ready for what? The boy looked up with a mix of determination and vulnerability. To run. Silence fell for a moment. The answer was not what MrBeast expected. Many were excited to walk again, but this child didn't just want to walk, he wanted to run. "I wanted something bigger." MrBeast single quotes S curiosity was ignited. "Do you want to tell me your story?" Samuel nodded. And so, without knowing it, he had just begun one of the most moving stories that MrBeast would ever experience. For as long as he could remember, Samuel had dreamed of running. It didn't matter that his body didn't respond to him like other children his age. It didn't matter that people told him he had to accept his limitations. For him, running was not just a movement. It was freedom. Samuel was born with a deformity in his legs that made it difficult for him to walk and prevent him from running. Since he was little, his mother took him from doctor to doctor looking for answers, treatments, options. "Maybe with physiotherapy, it will improve," some said. "You can use braces to support yourself better," others suggested. But the reality was stark. Samuel would always need help to move. Still, that didn't stop him. While other children spent hours playing video games, Samuel spent his afternoons watching Paralympic athletics races on television. He admired athletes who, despite their difficulties, defied all expectations. He saw runners with prosthetics sliding down the track with impressive speed, and something inside him lit up. "Someday, I'm going to be there," he told his mother with unwavering confidence. She always smiled and ruffled his hair lovingly. He loved his son's determination, but in his heart he feared for him. Not because he doubted his ability, but because the world could be cruel to dreamers. At age 5, Samuel received his first pair of braces. It took him weeks to learn to walk with them, but every step was a victory. While other children ran in the park, he moved slowly, shuffling his feet, feeling frustration burn in his chest. But he never gave up. At age 7, his mother took him to a rehabilitation clinic where he met other children with similar disabilities. There he was presented with a sports wheelchair, designed for racing. For the first time he could feel the speed. His heart was pounding as he pushed the wheels with all his might, sliding down the track as if he were flying. "Look, Mom. I'm fast," he shouted with a huge smile. That day changed everything. From then on, Samuel trained every afternoon on a small track near his house. He had no coach or specialized equipment, just his determination and the support of his mother. However, the road was not easy. At school, some kids made fun of him. "Why do you train so much if you are never going to run like the others?" They told him. Samuel did not respond. He just gritted his teeth and pushed his chair harder with every workout. For him, every word of mockery was one more reason to prove them wrong. The years passed and his dream grew with him. At the age of 10, he discovered that the Paralympic Games existed and began to study everything about them. He watched documentaries, learned about athletes, and dreamed of one day being on that track, with thousands of people cheering him as he crossed the finish line. But there was a problem. His wheelchair was no longer enough. To reach his true potential, he needed specialized training and a sports prosthesis that would allow him to run. His mother worked hard to give him the best, but such a prosthesis cost more than they could imagine. "Don't worry, Mom. We'll find a way," Samuel told him, always with hope intact. Until one day, his mother ran into his room with her eyes full of emotion. "Samuel, look at this," he said, showing her the screen of his cell phone. It was a MrBeast video. It announced a new project in which it would help 2,000 people regain mobility. Samuel felt a chill run through his body. "Do you think it could be me?" he asked with a lump in his throat. His mother didn't doubt it. He filled out the application without thinking twice. The days passed and the uncertainty grew. Samuel tried not to get his hopes up, but every time he thought about the possibility, his heart beat faster. Until one morning, the phone rang. "Hello, shall I speak to Samuel's family?" said a voice on the other end of the line. Samuel's mother felt like she was short of breath. "Yes, what is it about?" "We're calling from the MrBeast team. Samuel has been selected to receive surgery and treatment to improve his mobility." Samuel heard his mother's response, but only 4 words resonated. In his head, "I'll be able to run." That day marked the beginning of the greatest adventure of his life. The sun had barely begun to illuminate the city when the phone rang at Samuel's house. His mother, still sleepy, took a few seconds to react before answering. "Hello?" The voice on the other end of the line sounded clear and professional. "Good morning. Do I talk to Samuel's family?" His mother's heart pounded. "Yes, I am his mother. We're calling from the MrBeast team. We want to give you some great news. Samuel has been selected to receive an operation and treatment that could improve his mobility." For a moment, silence reigned in the house. It was as if the world had stopped. Samuel's mother felt the air get stuck in her throat. He looked at his son, who was watching with wide eyes, trying to read what was happening in his expression. Has Samuel been selected?" he asked with a trembling voice. "That's how it is. MrBeast has chosen 2,000 people to change their lives, and Samuel is one of them." Samuel's mother covered the phone's microphone and looked at him with overflowing emotion. "Samuel, we did it." He couldn't contain himself any longer. He jumped, or at least tried to, from his chair and hugged his mother with all his might. I didn't need to hear more. I knew what it meant. "I'll be able to walk," he whispered, but in his heart, He knew he wanted much more than that. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. On the one hand, Samuel was excited like never before in his life. Thinking that he could stand up without help was a dream that seemed unattainable. Until now. On the other hand, his mother couldn't help but worry. I knew that the treatments were not miraculous, that there were risks, and that surgery did not guarantee absolute success. What if something went wrong? What if Samuel got too excited and then suffered disappointment? But Samuel never doubted. "Mom, it doesn't matter if I have to learn to walk from scratch. If it hurts, if it takes months, I will do it." His determination was unwavering. The medical team explained the process to him. Surgery would correct some of his structural limitations, and with therapy, could improve his mobility significantly. If he responded well to the treatment, over time, he would even be able to wear sports prosthetics and train like a real athlete. That last part made Samuel feel a shiver of excitement. "You mean ... I could run?" The doctor smiled. "If you train enough, yes." Samuel felt a lump in his throat. I had waited so long to hear those words. The night before he left for surgery, he stayed awake staring at the ceiling of his room. His mind couldn't stop imagining everything, standing up without help, taking his first steps, feeling the wind on his face while running on a track. That night, before going to sleep, he made a promise to the universe. "I'm not just going to walk. I'm going to run, and I'm going to win." I had no doubts. His story was just beginning. The day had arrived. Samuel was on the hospital stretcher, dressed in a white coat, surrounded by doctors and nurses who were preparing everything for the surgery. Her mother was next to her, holding her hand tightly, trying to hide the nervousness that consumed her. "Everything is going to be okay," Samuel whispered to her, trying to calm her down. But deep inside, he also felt afraid. What if something went wrong? What if it didn't work as expected? One of the doctors approached with a reassuring smile. "Samuel, you are in the best hands. When you wake up, you will be one step closer to fulfilling your dream." Samuel nodded, taking a deep breath. Then, the anesthesia began to take effect. His vision blurred, and the last thing he heard was his mother's voice telling him how much she loved him. While Samuel slept soundly in the operating room, his mother waited outside, her heart pounding with each passing minute. It had been a long road until that moment. He remembered all the times Samuel had fallen, all the times he had cried silently because he wanted to run like the other children. Now he was on the brink of a monumental change in his life. But what if it didn't work out? Every minute felt eternal. After what seemed like hours, one of the surgeons left the room and approached her. The surgery was a success. Samuel's mother covered her mouth, feeling tears falling uncontrollably. When will he wake up? In a few minutes. And then the real test will begin. When Samuel opened his eyes, the first thing he felt was the weight of his body on the bed. Everything looked blurry at first, but little by little he recognized the hospital room and his mother, who was watching him with eyes full of emotion. "You did it, son," he said with a broken voice. Samuel smiled weakly. He tried to move his legs, and although he felt a slight stiffness, he noticed something different. Something had changed. A physical therapist entered the room with an energetic expression. "Hello, champion. Ready to try it?" Samuel nodded, although fear took hold of him for a moment. His mother and the doctors helped him up in bed, then carefully guided him to the edge. The physiotherapist extended a hand. "When you're ready, try to stand up." Samuel's heart was pounding. He took a deep breath, felt his legs trembling, and pushed with all his strength. For a moment, the world was silent. And then, it happened. Samuel was standing, supported by the physiotherapist and with his legs still weak. But he was standing. Tears welled up in her mother's eyes. Samuel, breathing heavily, looked down and saw his own feet resting on the ground. "I'm doing it," he whispered, his voice shaking. He took a first step. He stumbled a little, but did not fall. He gave another and another. Emotion overwhelmed him. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but I was walking. "I'm going to make it," he said, with a smile full of determination. He knew the road would be long, but at that moment, he understood that his dream was closer than ever. The journey was just beginning. The first few days after surgery were a whirlwind of emotions for Samuel. I felt a mixture of joy, amazement, and hope. He was standing, he could take small steps, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly free. But he soon discovered that walking was not the same as running. When it was time to start more advanced exercises, Samuel thought it would all be a matter of time. I had imagined that, after a few days of therapy, I would be able to jog without problems. But the reality was completely different. The first day he tried running, his body just wasn't responding the way he expected. He put one foot on the ground, then the other. He tried to push himself forward, but instead of moving with agility, he lost his balance and fell. The impact was not strong, but the emotional blow was devastating. He stayed on the ground, his fists clenched, feeling frustration consume him. "Are you okay, Samuel?" his physical therapist asked, helping him up. Samuel nodded, but in his mind, something began to crack. For days, he tried again and again. He walked well, even with some speed, but the moment he tried to run, his legs didn't seem to obey. "Come on, Samuel, one more step," said his coach, but his body did not respond. Fear began to invade him. The nights became difficult. He would lie awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling his dream getting further and further away. "Maybe I'll never make it," he whispered one night, feeling a lump in his throat. He had dreamed of this moment all his life, but now that he had the chance, it seemed like it wasn't enough. His mother noticed his sadness and sat next to him. "What's wrong, son?" Samuel was slow to respond. Finally, he released what he had been repressing for days. "What if I can never run? What if this is as far as I go?" Her mother held her hands firmly. "Samuel, do you remember the first time you tried to walk when you were little? How many times did you fall before taking your first step?" Samuel frowned. "Don't know." "Many," she said with a smile, "but you never gave up. Every time you fell, you tried again. And in the end, you did it." Samuel looked at her with eyes full of uncertainty. "But this is different. No, son, it is not. You just need time, patience, and above all, believe in yourself." Samuel did not answer, but inside something began to change. He knew he couldn't give up yet. "I knew that even though it was difficult, I had to try one more time. The real challenge was just beginning." Samuel kept trying, but frustration was his constant shadow. Every day in therapy became a fight between his body and his mind. He walked steadily, even quickly, but the moment he tried to run, his legs seemed to refuse. The physiotherapist told him that he had to be patient, that his body needed time to adapt. But Samuel didn't want to hear that. He wanted to run. He wanted to feel the wind on his face, the adrenaline of moving without restrictions. "But every time I tried to take the first sprint, something went wrong. It was on one of those days, just after another fall on the training track, that his mother received a call. MrBeast wants to talk to you." The video call started, and on the screen, MrBeast appeared with his characteristic smile. "Samuel, how are you, champion?" Samuel tried to smile, but his heart still carried the disappointment of training. "I'm fine." MrBeast looked at him curiously. "You don't sound like someone who just accomplished something amazing. You're walking, right?" Samuel nodded. "Yes, but I can't run." The YouTuber was silent for a moment. Then he smiled again. "Samuel, do you know how many times I've tried something in my life and it's gone wrong?" The boy frowned. "How many?" "Thousands, literally, but I never stopped. And that's what I want you to do." Samuel sighed. "I try, but I don't know if I can do it alone." MrBeast snapped his fingers. Exact. You don't have to do it alone. That's why I have something for you. The screen changed, and suddenly, a tall man appeared, with a big smile and an athletic demeanor. Samuel, I want you to meet someone, MrBeast said. This is Alejandro Vargas, a coach of Paralympic athletes who has worked with some of the best runners in the world. The man waved. Hello, Samuel. I heard your story and you inspired me. If you're willing to work harder than ever, maybe there's an opportunity for you. Samuel felt his heart beat harder. An opportunity? Alexander nodded. If you train with discipline and commitment, we could prepare you for something big. Like the Paralympic Games. The word struck Samuel like lightning. The Paralympic Games? It was a dream so big that he had not even dared to imagine it. He looked at his mother, who was watching him with tears in her eyes. MrBeast smiled. So Samuel, are you ready to take the next step? Samuel took a deep breath. His dream, the one he had been on the verge of abandoning, suddenly seemed bigger than ever. And he was ready. Yeah, I'm ready. The real training was about to begin. The first day of training with Alejandro Vargas was not what Samuel expected. He imagined something exciting, like in the movies. Firm steps, immediate progress, words of encouragement and visible improvement in a short time. But the reality was different. From the first minute, Alejandro made it clear that this path would not be easy. Samuel, I want you to understand something, the coach said as they walked toward the court. We don't train to be good. We train to be the best. Samuel swallowed. That's what I want. Alexander smiled. Good. So, prepare to suffer. The first exercise seemed simple. Walk around the track as fast as possible. Samuel began enthusiastically, pumping his arms to propel himself. But after a few meters, his breathing became heavier, his legs began to burn, and every step felt like a battle. After one turn, he fell to the ground, exhausted. Come on up, said Alejandro. Samuel gasped, feeling his heart pounding. Can't. Alejandro crouched down next to him. You're right. Today you can't. But tomorrow you will do double. Samuel looked at him in disbelief. How could I endure more if I could barely handle this? The next few days were held out every morning. Samuel woke up with sore muscles. He felt sore in parts of his body that he didn't even know could hurt. The training was brutal. Strength exercises to strengthen your legs. Balance sessions to improve your stability. Cardio training that left him breathless. Each session ended with Samuel lying on the floor, covered in sweat, wondering how athletes did this every day. And the worst thing was not the physical pain. It was fear. The fear of not improving. The fear that all this effort would be in vain. One afternoon, after a particularly hard workout, Samuel collapsed on the floor of the track. His legs were shaking. His chest rose and fell desperately. Alexander approached. Get up. Samuel closed his eyes, feeling frustration burn his throat. Can't. Alejandro crossed his arms. Yes, you can. You just don't want to. Samuel gritted his teeth. You don't understand. Everything hurts. I try and I keep failing. No matter how much I train, I can't run like everyone else. The coach remained silent. Then he crouched down next to her and spoke to her in a firm voice. Do you think champions reach the finish line without pain? Do you think the Paralympic athletes you admire haven't felt the same way you do? Samuel did not answer. You have two options, Samuel. You can stay down and give up, or you can get up and keep going. Samuel felt a lump in his throat. He stood there, his face bathed in sweat and his hands trembling. And then, a voice echoed in his mind. I want to run and win. With his lips pursed, he put his hands on the ground, pushed his body up and stood up. Alexander smiled. That's how it's done. Now do it again. The training was just beginning. But Samuel was already learning the first lesson of the journey. It doesn't matter how many times you fall. What matters is how many times you get up. The training continued and Samuel improved, but something inside him still didn't fit. He could feel his muscles getting stronger, his stamina increasing, but the shadow of doubt was still there. Every time he tried to run at full speed, something inside his mind slowed him down. Alejandro noticed it. Your body is ready for more, but your mind doesn't trust it yet. Samuel frowned. What do you mean? Alejandro crossed his arms. Speed does not start in the legs. It starts in the head. Samuel didn't quite understand, but before he could ask more, Alejandro took out his phone and dialed a number. It's time you talk to someone who has been through this. A few days later, Samuel and his mother traveled to an elite training center. Alejandro took them to a track where a man was doing sprints with a prosthesis on one of his legs. Each step was powerful, precise, full of determination. Samuel, meet Luis Fernandez, Paralympic medalist in athletics. Samuel recognized him immediately. I had watched videos of his races and knew that he was one of the fastest in the world. In his category. Luis approached and extended his hand. So you are Samuel? Alejandro told me your story. Samuel nodded shyly. Yes, but I can't run yet. Luis smiled. I couldn't either at first. Samuel looked at him in surprise. Oh really? Luis nodded. When I lost my leg, I thought my career was over. I couldn't accept the idea of not running again. And when I started training with my prosthesis, my body responded, but my mind was afraid. Samuel listened to him attentively. How did you get over it? Luis looked at him intently. I understood that the body follows the mind. If your mind believes you can, your body will find a way. But if you doubt, if you fill yourself with fear, you will never truly run. Samuel felt a chill. Then what should I do? Luis smiled. First, stop thinking about what you can't do and start visualizing what you will do. Close your eyes and imagine every step, every stride, every second on the court. Feel the wind on your face. Run in your mind before running in reality. Samuel closed his eyes. For the first time, instead of imagining himself stumbling or failing, he saw himself running with speed and strength. Crossing a finish line with his arms raised, he opened his eyes and took a deep breath. Luis patted him on the shoulder. Remember, Samuel, it's not just the body that runs. It is the mind. Back on the track with Alejandro, Samuel stood at the starting line, but this time, something was different. He closed his eyes and saw himself running with determination. He visualized every step, every breath. And then, when Alejandro gave the signal, Samuel ran. For the first time, without fear. His coach looked at him in amazement. Something in Samuel had changed, and what he would do next would surprise everyone. Samuel had never been so nervous in his life. The stadium, although small, was full of spectators, coaches, and families cheering on the competitors. It was a local competition, but for him, it was much more than that. It was his first real opportunity to show what he was capable of. Alejandro looked at him and patted him on the back. Don't think about winning or losing. Think about giving your best. Samuel nodded, but his stomach was churning. The runners took their positions. Samuel glanced askance at his competitors. They were fast, more experienced than him. Some had been running for years. Do I really belong here? He shook his head, remembering Luis's words. Run in your mind before you run in reality. He closed his eyes for a second. He visualized the race. The crowd heard. He felt the track under his feet. And then, bang! The starting shot echoed in the air. Samuel bolted. The first meters were a clash of emotions. His legs responded well, but the other runners were faster. One by one, they overcame him. The pressure was increasing. Don't stop. He gritted his teeth, pushing his body to its maximum. But at the last turn, he felt the burning in his muscles. His rivals accelerated. Samuel did the same. The last meters were a battle between his body, his mind, and his determination. And then he crossed the finish. Samuel fell to the ground, gasping. He looked at the giant screen displaying the times. He hadn't won, not even a second, not even a third. Had been left in last place. Silence took over his mind. I trained so hard, and I didn't even come close. He felt defeated, but then something unexpected happened. The audience began to applaud, but not the winners. Him. One of the organizers took the microphone and said, "Today, we have seen something more important than a victory. We have seen a young man who has fought more than we can imagine to be here." The applause grew. Samuel's eyes felt wet. One of the runners approached and shook his hand. "You're amazing, brother." Samuel looked at Alexander. His coach didn't seem disappointed. "Today, you didn't win a medal," Alejandro said, "but you earned respect." Samuel smiled, his heart still pounding. He had lost the race. He had gained something much bigger. And this was just the beginning. Samuel's story did not end with that race. In fact, it was about to take an unexpected turn. MrBeast, who had been closely following their progress, could not ignore what had happened. He saw the recording of the competition. The moment Samuel crossed the finish line, the applause from the public. He didn't win the race, but he had conquered everyone's hearts. And in that moment, Jimmy Donaldson, better known as MrBeast, knew he had to do something more, something never seen before. That same night, his team met. "I want to do something big for Samuel," said MrBeast, looking at his collaborators. Chris raised an eyebrow. "Something like what?" Jimmy smiled. "Not just help him train. I want the world to know it. I want to bring your story to millions of people." Carl leaned forward, excited. "We could make a documentary about his life. Or get him an elite trainer," Nolan added. "Or," Jimmy said, with a mischievous smile, "we could do all that. And more." The team was silent for a moment. Jimmy already had his mind going. "We need to contact experts, find sponsors, and make this story become an inspiring movement." Chris nodded. "If anyone can make this happen, it's you." In the following weeks, MrBeast moved heaven and earth. He contacted renowned sports brands. He sent emails to high-level coaches. He posted a video talking about Samuel, and within hours he became viral. The networks exploded. "Incredible story of improvement. This kid deserves a real chance." MrBeast changing lives once again. But the best was yet to come. One day, Jimmy received a call. He was a representative of the International Paralympic Committee. "We want to talk about Samuel," said the voice on the other end of the phone. What started as a simple gesture of help was now turning into something much bigger. Samuel wasn't just a boy trying to run. Was becoming the symbol of a new generation of Paralympic athletes. And what MrBeast would do next would leave the world speechless. Samuel felt like everything was falling into place. The training was paying off. His speed improved. His resistance increased. Every day he felt stronger, faster, more confident that his dream was within reach. But then, everything changed in an instant. It was a day like any other on the track. Samuel was focused on improving his time in the 100 meters. "Come on, Samuel, faster," his coach Alejandro shouted. Samuel gritted his teeth. He pushed his body to the limit. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters. And then, a snap. A sharp pain exploded in his right leg. Samuel felt his body lose balance. He fell to the ground with a piercing scream. Alejandro and the others ran towards him. "Samuel, what happened?" The young man tried to move, but the pain was unbearable. Something was wrong, very badly. That same afternoon, Samuel was at the sports clinic with his leg immobilized. The doctor entered with a serious face. "Samuel, I have bad news." The young man's heart pounded. "You have suffered a torn ligament." The world stopped. "That means you will need months of recovery before training again. If you can return." Samuel felt a lump in his throat. "What does 'if I can come back' mean?" he asked, his voice trembling. The doctor sighed. "I'm not going to lie to you. Injuries like this can be devastating. There are athletes who never fully recover. Those words hit like a rock. Alejandro, who was next to him, tried to intervene. But there are ways to rehabilitate, right? The doctor nodded. Yes, but it will be a long and painful process. And there are no guarantees. Samuel felt that all his effort, all his sacrifice, could have been in vain. That night, in the solitude of his room, Samuel looked at the bandages on his leg. His whole body hurt. But what hurt the most was the fear. What if this is the end? What if I can never run again? He thought about everything that had happened, in surgery, in training, in the people who had believed in him. He thought about MrBeast, about Alejandro, about his family. He thought of the thousands of people who followed his story with hope. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he wanted to give up. But then, his phone vibrated. It was a message from MrBeast. Samuel, the history of great champions is not written in easy moments. It is written when everything seems lost. And I know that you are not someone who gives up. Samuel closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. And he knew he had a decision to make. Accept defeat or fight like never before. And what he would do next would surprise everyone. Samuel had hit rock bottom. The pain from his injury was not only in his leg, but in his heart. Every night he looked at his sneakers next to his bed and wondered if he would ever run again. But then, he remembered MrBeast's message. The history of great champions is not written in easy moments. It is written when everything seems lost. Those words burned in his mind like a flame that refused to go out. He couldn't give up. Not after having come this far. Rehabilitation began the next day. Samuel could barely bend his knee without feeling a stab of pain. Take it easy, the physiotherapist, a kind-looking man named Rodrigo, told him. Recovering will take time. That word weighed heavily on his chest. He had trained to run, to be faster, stronger. But now his challenge was not to run, it was simply stand up. Every stretch was a challenge. Every therapy session was a battle against pain and despair. There were days when he felt like he was making no progress. Days when he wanted to give up. But in each of those moments, there was always someone reminding him that he was not alone. His family was his refuge. Samuel, what you are experiencing is part of your story, his mother told him one afternoon. One day you will look back and understand why it had to be that way. His father, a man of few words, simply put a hand on his shoulder and said, "You are strong, son. Don't forget it." And then there was MrBeast. One night, Samuel received an unexpected video call. It was Jimmy, with a smile on his face. "I have a surprise for you," he said. Samuel raised an eyebrow. What a surprise. MrBeast turned his camera and showed something that left Samuel speechless. It was a group of Paralympic athletes. "All these champions have been through the same thing as you," Jimmy said. "And they have come to give you a message." One by one, the athletes began to speak. "I broke my leg just before my first important competition. They told me I would never run again. Today I have 3 gold medals. They told me that my body was not made for athletics. And now I represent my country in the Paralympic Games. The most difficult thing is not the injury. It's the battle in your mind. Don't let fear win." Samuel couldn't believe it. These were true champions, people who had gone through the same pain, the same uncertainty, and they had overcome it. That day, something changed inside him. For the first time in weeks, he smiled with true hope. From that moment on, Samuel stopped wondering if he was going to recover. I knew he would do it. The pain was still there, but it no longer defined him. Each therapy session was one step closer to his return. Every small advance was a victory. Day after day, his leg gained strength. His confidence returned. And then, after months of hard work, the moment I had been waiting for arrived. Samuel stood on the court for the first time since his injury. He took a deep breath. He looked at the horizon. And he took his first trot. It was slow, clumsy, but in that moment, He knew that his dream, he was still alive, and what he would do next would change everything. Samuel had never felt so much excitement and nerves at the same time. The weeks of recovery had been grueling, but now he was ready, or at least, that's what I wanted to believe. And then, the big news arrived. It was an ordinary morning when his coach Alejandro called him urgently. "Samuel, you have to come right now," he said with an unusual emotion in his voice. Samuel, intrigued, arrived at the training center. Alejandro handed him his phone. "Read this." Samuel saw the screen. It was an email from the International Youth Paralympic Athletics Federation. He read it twice. "Dear Samuel, we would like to invite you to the upcoming International Youth Competition in Dubai. Your story has inspired many, and we believe you deserve the opportunity to showcase your talent on the court. We hope to see you soon." Samuel felt like he was out of breath. This is huge," he whispered. His dream of competing internationally, it had just become reality. Hours later, Samuel received another video call from MrBeast. Jimmy had a smile from ear to ear. "Samuel, I just found out. I can't believe it, Jimmy. I'm going to compete internationally." "And you won't do it alone," MrBeast said with a knowing look. "I'm going with you." Samuel was shocked. "Yes, friend. I want everyone to see your story. I'm going to record it all and make sure millions of people know about your journey." Samuel's eyes filled with tears. "I wasn't alone. I never had been. And now, everyone was about to see what he was capable of." Days later, Samuel and his team landed in Dubai. The heat of the desert greeted him along with a stunning view of the city. The stadium where he would compete was enormous, bigger than he ever imagined. From day one, cameras followed him everywhere. MrBeast documented every moment. "We're here with Samuel, a young man who has overcome incredible obstacles and is now ready to take on the best in the world," Jimmy said to the camera. "Let's see how far it can go." Samuel couldn't believe it. All this was real. He was about to take on the best youth Paralympic athletes in the world. The days before the competition were intense. Samuel trained with more enthusiasm than ever, but every night, when he was alone in his hotel room, the doubt returned. "Am I ready for this? What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough?" The voices in his head were louder than ever. But then, he remembered all the times he had fallen and gotten back up. And he knew there was no turning back. The world was about to see what he was made of. And what would happen on the track would leave everyone breathless. The stadium roared with thousands of spectators. The flags of different countries flew in the stands. Samuel stood at the starting line, his heart beating so loudly he felt like he could hear it. He took a deep breath. This was the moment he had worked his entire life for. MrBeast's cameras were ready. The whole world was watching it. The other runners settled into their positions. They were fast. They were strong. They were the best of the best. Samuel swallowed. All the sacrifice, the pain, the nights of doubt had led him here. "Come on, Samuel," he whispered to himself. "It's now or never." The judge raised the starting weapon. The audience held its breath. Samuel closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered all the times he fell, all the times he got up. It doesn't matter how you start. It matters how you finish. He opened his eyes. Bang. Samuel bolted. His legs responded like never before. The wind hit his face. He could feel the other runners beside him. One tried to pass him. Samuel gritted his teeth and accelerated. The stands were a blur of colors and screens. Everything disappeared. There was only the track. There was only the goal. There were only 20 meters left. Samuel was in third place. I could hear MrBeast shouting from the stands. He could hear his own breathing, his heart pounding against his chest. 10 meters, 5 meters, and then the unexpected happened. The first runner stumbled. Samuel saw the opportunity. He closed his eyes for a second, and he gave it all. He crossed the finish line with a shout of effort. The stadium erupted in euphoria. Samuel fell to the ground gasping. Had he achieved it? He looked at the giant screen, and then he saw the results. His eyes widened. He had come in second place, a silver medal, the dream that seemed impossible. It had just become reality. Tears rolled down her cheeks. MrBeast was running towards him, screaming with excitement. The stadium chanted his name. Samuel covered his face with his hands, unable to believe it. It wasn't just a race. It was proof that it had never been broken. It was proof that dreams come true, and what would happen next would be even bigger. Samuel stood on the podium, the silver medal shining on his chest. The camera lights flickered incessantly. The world had witnessed his journey, from the boy who dreamed of running to the Paralympic athlete who had shown that nothing was impossible. MrBeast was next to him with a big smile on his face. "You did it, brother," he said, giving him a big hug. Samuel took a deep breath and looked at the audience. There were thousands of people in the stadium, but I knew there were millions more watching from their homes. Millions of children who once felt they had no opportunities, and he had something to tell them. He took the microphone with trembling hands. MrBeast's cameras were live. "When I was a child, they told me I would never be able to run," he said, his voice breaking. "But I did it. And you can do it too." There was a deep silence. Then the applause began. "It doesn't matter if the world tells you that you can't. It doesn't matter if you fall 1,000 times. The only thing that matters is that you get up." Tears ran down her face. "If you have a dream, never stop fighting for it." The stadium erupted in cheers. Social media exploded. #Samuel L. Guerrera. It became a global trend. His story inspired millions. Children with disabilities around the world saw his story and said to themselves, "If he could do it, so can I." Days later, MrBeast uploaded the full video. It became the most viewed on his channel in a matter of hours. But beyond the visits, beyond the numbers, the most important thing was the impact. In the last scene of the video, MrBeast looked at the camera and said, "Sometimes the greatest thing we can do is believe in someone." The screen faded to black. And Samuel's legacy had begun.